This is John Cola with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today you're in for a very special treat. We have part 7 of 7, the last part of me helping Rick and Karen get their backyard raised bed system done, and we're basically working on the irrigation. So here's part 7. So now I'm installing the center row. We got the connector here. Now we're just going to run this down to their side. And as you run it down, it's very important to stake them in. Stake them in place, because this hose is going to want to kink and bend, and it'll mess you up a little bit if you don't stake it down. So these stakes come in very useful, very handy. Okay, so you can see I have 2 of the rows already completed. The next thing is we're just going to do this last row. Once again, this is just like pretty much busy work. It's pretty straightforward. You know, I've been taking the hose, cutting it, and just fitting it into the connector and using the stakes to stake down the hose to make sure it stays where I want it to stay. So we're going to go ahead and put this into the fitting, and we're going to wheel this out, put some stakes in, and we're going to do the last corner piece. I'm going to cut it right there. Really simple doing this kind of work, and just put this guy in there, rotate it into place, and now we have to just connect these 2 little sections. So it's really easy. We're just going to once again take the drip tube, shove it in there, kind of rotate it as you're turning it in. Really simple to put in. We're going to stake this down so we know exactly where it's going to be, so we know how long we have to cut the pipe, otherwise it's going to flex all over the place. We're going to come over to here, and what I like to do when I'm doing this and cutting this, I'll pretty much come between, you know, here, and midway is right about there. So that's how long you're going to pretty much cut it. I mean, it doesn't have to be precise, but I like to do it at least like about halfway in, right about there. How's that? Then all you do is you take this, put it in, kind of rotate it in place about halfway like we set it up to be, and there you have it. Now the drip system is all installed, nice and easy, really simple, anybody could do it. So now we're going to install the drip emitters, and we're using the DIG brand, D-I-G brand drip emitters. If you did see my other episodes, this brand is a superior brand over the Rain Drip for one very important reason. These drippers you could actually take apart and clean the passageways on the inside in case they do get clogged and no longer function. The Rain Drips are basically, you can't take them apart, and if they clog, you need to basically, you can maybe try to blow air through them like the opposite direction, like compressed air, but most of the time you just got to throw them out. They're just much lesser quality, so we got the good ones here. This is a 2-gallon per hour flow rate, and you know, the question is, you know, John, what gallon per hour should I get? They have half gallon, 1 gallon, or 2 gallon. And all else being equal, if you have the ball valve here in place, I would recommend the 2 gallon. They're going to flow the most, and basically we're going to cut back the flow by doing the ball valve to the emitters. So these emitters will flow 2 gallons per hour. Basically, if they're given between 15 and 20 psi, or pounds per square inch of water. Of course, if you give them less, they're going to flow less. If you give them more, they're going to flow more. So without further ado, let's go ahead and install the emitters. We have the super handy punch tool. This is about a $10 punch tool. They do make less expensive punch tools, but for production like this, this device really saves a lot of time. And how this works is, we're going to come right behind the plant where we want the hole. Make sure it's in there, punch it, and there you can see we just easily put a hole in there. And there's the hole, and then we just take the emitter, and the emitter has 2 ends, one end where the water comes out and one end that goes in the pipe. This end's tapered off and has a little thing in there, and then we put that in, and it just kind of pops into place, and that's how easy it is. So I'm going to get to work here, and I got about, I don't know, 40 emitters to put in. We're going to do this real quick, and we'll come back, and you'll see it finished. Alright, so Karen was just punching some holes with the hole punch tool, and what happens if you don't punch a correct hole, this is what happens. If you're at an angle, for example, if you're trying to punch a hole and you're at a funny angle, or you don't like go in all the way, or the hose is compressed, you'll basically get a partial hole, and that could be problematic. So what I did in this situation is I just made a hole next to it out of the way, and if this hole did in fact puncture, we'll just actually get a hole plug. So they have small hole plugs and large hole plugs. So we might have to just actually dig that out and then put a large hole plug in there so that it doesn't leak. And you know, this will happen unless you're really, really on top of it and paying attention. So now all the drip emitters are installed. We got one at every plant, and the next step is to test the system. So first what we're going to do is we're going to turn the ball valve off. This is very important because if we turn the ball valve fully on, what's going to happen is there's going to be too much pressure in the system and it may actually pop the drip emitters out. So we're going to turn the ball valve off, and we're going to go ahead and turn the water on to pressurize up to the ball valve. So now Rick is going to turn the valve on manually that goes to that raised bed by turning the solenoid. And you can hear the water flowing, filling up all the pipes. And there it is, it's fully pressurized to that ball valve. So now let's go back to the ball valve and turn it on and see how it works. So now we are pressurized up to the ball valve up to this point, and we will slowly turn the ball valve to make water come out of the drip emitters. And you can hear the water running. And it's going to pressurize all this brand new tubing we put in, and here's a dripper here. And as soon as it's fully pressurized, you can see the water coming out of the drippers. And you can maybe turn it on a little bit more to get the air out of the system. And you'll hear all the air get purged out of the emitters. And it does take a little bit of time. You can see our emitters are spraying out now. We wouldn't want to leave them this much unless you want something to get really watered. Now this is spraying too much, so now we're going to crank down the ball valve, and you can see as I crank down the ball valve, the amount of water coming out of each dripper is reducing. So we could come out until a drip, or if we want it to, you know, flow a little bit more, we could have it flow a bit more. But, you know, that's definitely up to you and how much water you want to give your plants. So we just got the raised bed finished with the irrigation system in this part of the bed. They still have a little bit more work to do, but that's pretty much the end of my work here. I showed them how to do it. They could take it and run for the rest of it, and I'm glad I could help them, you know, put and grow some food, some raised beds in their backyard. Hopefully one day they'll convert their front lawn and to all raised beds. They're laughing about it, but one day they will. Mark my words, maybe. I don't know. So this is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. This is another Growing Your Greens success story. Help my friends and put in their raised bed garden. I hope you guys out there too are growing more food because of me. It really makes my day. And so we'll see you next time.
Thanks, John.